Okay, so people have mixed feelings about Supergirl, the movie. It doesn't seem like many people love this movie, but it also doesn't seem like that many people full-on hate the movie. And I personally have similar feelings, although I definitely come down on the side of liking the movie as opposed to disliking it. But this is all kind of a shame because the source material for this movie, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is an absolutely fantastic comic that is pretty much universally loved. So what went wrong? Well, I can't say that everything wrong with the movie is because it deviated from the comic, but I do think that that is a large part of what held this movie back. And what I want to do today is talk about some of the changes that I think had the most significant impact. And boy howdy, are there going to be spoilers. Let's start by talking about the villain, Krem. For those of you who don't remember, Krem is the villain that killed Ruthie's family and also poisoned Krypto, which pretty much kicked off the movie where Kara and Ruthie are trying to track him down across space. And this is a point that a lot of people really didn't like about the movie. They found him forgettable, bland, or just an all-around bad villain. And here's the thing. In the comic book, I kind of feel the same way about him. I think he's a little bit generic and a little bit of a boring villain. But it doesn't matter because the comic book is very much a character-driven story where we're exploring who Kara is and how she became the Supergirl that we know today. And we also get to follow Ruthie. She's on this quest for vengeance, and because of that, she grows a lot as a person. And that's really what the heart of the comic book is about. So it's okay that Krem is kind of generic and maybe a little bit boring because he serves his purpose. He serves as a common goal for Kara and Ruthie so that we can see this character exploration unfold. And because of that, we didn't have to see much of him in the comic. We saw him here and there, but for the most part, this was a story with Kara and Ruthie and a bunch of surrounding characters they met along the way, and we really didn't get to see too much of Krem until the very end, which worked pretty well for what the story was trying to tell. The movie showed way more of Krem, which, side note, did anyone else notice that he was eating in like every freaking scene he was in? I didn't get that. Anywho, we saw a lot of Krem in the film. We saw him going about his evil escapades. And because we saw so much of him, we really got to see just how much of a generic and kind of boring character he is. And we saw less of what made the comic book so good, which is that character exploration I talked about a few moments ago. And I really feel like had they cut back on Krem a little bit or a lot of bit in the film, this film really could have spread its wings. Alas, we saw a lot of Krem in all of his ordinariness. Let's talk about color. The comic book is absolutely beautiful. Lots of different bright and vibrant colors that all work so well together. And the movie isn't that. It's a lot more drab, it's a lot more dull. And this was something that people picked up on when the trailers first started to come out. And I'll admit that at first, I actually wasn't that concerned about it. I thought they could still preserve the essence of the story and just have a different aesthetic. But having seen the movie, I think I was wrong. I think that the colors in the book were pretty essential to the story being as amazing as it was. And there was one scene in the movie that I thought really hit this point home. The scene is where we see Krypton, that is, dying, and we see Kara's father establish Argo City, which is, the big chunk of Krypton that is blasted off of the planet to kind of float around on its own and survive while the rest of the planet goes kablamo! And Argo City is eventually where Kara was born. Unfortunately, Argo City also had a lot of kryptonite it brought with it when it was blasted off of Krypton, which slowly poisoned everyone that lived there. And I think this is where there was a missed opportunity. Imagine if the scenes on Krypton or on Argo City before the kryptonite really took hold were bright and full of color and just fully saturated. Absolutely beautiful. But as that kryptonite starts to settle in and people start to die, that color palette becomes increasingly dull. I think that would have really highlighted the tragedy of Krypton. But because the film had such a dull color palette to begin with, we couldn't do that. So that emotional payoff wasn't as great as it could have been. Now, this is just one example. It's the one that stood out to me the most, but I definitely think there were other parts of the movie that would have benefited from being a little bit more colorful. And the last point I'll bring up here is the ending, and this is where the spoilers get real spoilery. In the end, Kara kills Krem. And man, that is just one of the main themes in the film. Was getting vengeance on someone who has wronged you doesn't take away the pain, it just replaces that pain with a different sort of burden on your mind and on your person. That was the main lesson that she was trying to teach Ruthie. Not to mention that if we look at the bigger picture of the DC universe, one of Superman's whole things is that he's full of kindness and hope. And I guarantee you that Clark would not have killed Krem in that situation. And I know that Kara has had a very different life experience than Clark, so she doesn't always see these things the same way, but her killing Krem just felt so antithetical to what this movie and the larger DCU is trying to be. And I thought they did it pretty well in the comic book, where Kara does not kill Krem. Instead, she sends him to the Phantom Zone, where he is rehabilitated. Kind of the sort of thing that you do with a villain like that. But Ruthie is writing a memoir, and in that memoir, she writes that Kara did kill Krem, but that was only so that the remaining brigands would not come after Ruthie. They would go after Kara because Kara's more equipped to handle that than Ruthie. And then at the very, very end, we see that Krem is released from the Phantom Zone. Ruthie is much, much older, and we have this wonderfully ambiguous scene where it's not clear if Ruthie does decide to kill him in that moment, or if she just gives him a heavy-handed strike as a way of saying that even after all of these years, I don't forgive you. So there you have it. There are a few changes that the movie made from the comic book that I think really hurt it in the long run. But I want to hear from you. Were there any changes in the movie that stood out to you as being especially bad, or were there changes that you thought were for the better? Let me know down in the comments. And I will see you next time.